This is a part 2 to the video, What If America Never Became a Superpower? Check out that video if you want more context. World War I began in 1914, and initially the US was a neutral country, until the US joined the war on the side of the Allied powers. The US entered the war in our timeline because of Germany's submarine warfare that killed American civilians, and also the Zimmermann telegram, which was basically Germany telling Mexico that they will back Mexico in taking back Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, which was really dumb because Mexico was in the middle of a civil war, and it basically just did nothing but provoke the US. And also Woodrow Wilson's decision, but in the end it was those reasons I listed that are the main reasons why the US got involved in World War I. In this alternate timeline in which the Founding Fathers banned slavery in the US, because in this alternate timeline the Founding Fathers are born in the North, that is pretty much the only point of divergence. The southern states get mad and form their own country in 1792, and basically the Confederacy exists as a country from 1792 to 1865, existing as an independent country for almost 80 years. And also, the Louisiana Purchase doesn't happen, even though France attempts to sell the territory to Thomas Jefferson, but Thomas Jefferson declines it, not because he doesn't want that territory, but because America is in a weaker position. It only controls the northern states. So what ends up happening to Louisiana is that the France keeps it for a few more years, then Napoleon gets defeated and the Louisiana territory falls to the British, making America's western border. America basically borders the British to the north and also to the west, making the US care more about protecting itself from British influence rather than projecting power overseas. By the time World War I breaks out in 1914, America in this alternate timeline finds itself in a much different position. The US has a smaller economy, smaller population, and less industrial capacity. Let me remind you that in this alternate timeline, the Confederacy exists from 1792 to 1865, meaning it has existed for an independent country for 73 years, unlike in our timeline in which the Confederacy only lasted for 4 years. Obama's presidency lasted longer than the Confederacy. But the point is that during the early 1860s, the US invades the Confederacy and wins because the US is able to out-industrialize the South. And during those 73 years, the Confederacy barely industrialized, let alone industrializes its army. And its economy is mostly agrarian and strongly dependent on slavery. But the point is that the US invasion of the Confederacy, the US has to deal with the realities of annexing a country that has lasted for 70 years. And the entire Reconstruction era lasted much longer than just 12 years, and it was expensive. So that time period from 1865 to 1914, or of 50 years, is mostly spent in the Reconstruction era and protecting the rights of blacks that have been freed of slavery. Isolationism is stronger in America. The Philippine-American War never happens, and the Philippines actually does gain independence from Spain, but it might be conquered by Japan or Germany. But with stronger isolationism, there is less foreign trade. The US commits to more neutrality. It does not support Britain or France, so Germany does not attack American civilian ships. And also, obviously, the Zimmermann telegram doesn't happen in this timeline, because if the Louisiana Purchase and westward US expansion doesn't happen, then the Mexican-American War doesn't happen. And I'm just going to assume that the Texan Revolution fails and Mexico doesn't lose half of its land. With all of this exposition out of the way, what happens in the year 1917 when US troops don't arrive in Europe? I said in the video, what if America never became a superpower, with the British controlling Louisiana and also the Oregon Territory, that creates additional manpower, but those territories under British rule are almost certainly uninhabited and mostly are just used to extract resources, so it doesn't change the outcome of World War I. What happens is that World War I leads to a negotiated peace. The UK and France knows that millions of fresh American troops are not going to enter the war, and Germany is running out of food because of the blockade, and Russia is more likely to want peace if the UK and France want. France and the UK knows that if they just continue the war endlessly, they're not going to win. So by mid-1917, there's a peace conference. Germany withdraws from Belgium and gains some economic concessions. France regains all of its occupied territory. Alsace-Lorraine remains German. Russia loses all of Poland and western Belarus, and no crushing reparations are imposed on either side. So the Treaty of Versailles doesn't happen. And also, the Bolsheviks don't take power in Russia. The USSR still forms, but under a Menshevik or socialist revolutionary multi-party government, not a Bolshevik government. After the war, Germany evolves into a constitutional monarchy like modern-day UK. Socialist revolutions within Germany fails. The Rhineland is demilitarized as a part of the peace process. France did not lose the war, but it failed to regain Alsace-Lorraine, and the war was pretty brutal in northern France, so that leads to strong instability, which leads France to have a socialist revolution that establishes a syndicalist democratic socialist republic, which spreads from France to Italy to Spain. So basically the status of Europe is that France, Italy, and Spain are all syndicalists. Germany and the UK and the Low Countries and some of the Nordic states are monarchists. The Kingdom of Yugoslavia and the Kingdom of Romania. Austria-Hungary collapses due to nationalism, and it collapses into like 5 countries that are liberal, democratic, capitalist republics. And here is a map of Europe if you like to know what Europe would look like in this timeline. Now, I want to talk more about what Europe would be like after World War I. In this timeline, World War I lasts from 1914 to late September 1917, or before November of 1917, or even March of 1917, sometime before the Bolsheviks take power in Russia, and after the Russian Empire was overthrown and the Russian Republic, or provisional government, was established. So World War I only lasts for 3 years in this timeline, instead of lasting for 4 years. And also, because the German Empire survives World War I, World War II doesn't happen. Or at least if there is a European war that happens again, it happens later and it takes a different form. But outside of Europe, no European power loses colonies. Like, Germany does not lose colonies in Africa like it did in our timeline. And even France, Italy, and Spain have syndicalists. Even after they have syndicalist socialist revolutions, they don't give up their colonies, but due to ideology, they spread their ideology to those regions and do a slow decolonization process. But in terms of pure gains, Germany gains puppet states in Eastern Europe with the collapse of the Russian Empire. And these puppet states act as buffer states, since, obviously Germany would be hostile to whatever socialist government is in power in Russia, even if it's a moderate socialist government. Poland, Ukraine, and Belarus are all authoritarian conservative puppet monarchies of the German Empire, and the German Empire basically exploits these nations for their natural resources. And I also forgot to mention that during the Russian Revolution, the United Kingdom would take Alaska from Russia due to the Russian Revolution, but this of course could happen much earlier. But that's gonna be it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want like a part 3, then just let me know in the comments. But anyways, peace.